are no longer comfortable with giving land and projects are not being executed on it. So if the federal or whomever wants to engage on a project, it's sincere.
Right.
Of course, what you need to do is to liaise and tell us the impact of that project to the immediate community and to the state. Of course, the states are ready to give land, but sincerity of purpose has been what has been delaying and causing a lot of jam around that edge.
When they talk about reforms in the agri sector, especially regarding, again, this issue of Land Use Act, what should those reforms be? Because most times it appears government just sounds ambiguous. They just say things and those things hang in the air. What, in specific terms, what should those reforms look like?
Yeah, the reform should look like on land acquisition, especially to interested farmer at every level,
right.
Both commercial, both subsistence farmer. You know, whatever government should now engage and allocate a specific portion and call it a farmland, where there can be infrastructure, accessibility to those farms, security. You know, if you have that, what I mean is that in Rwanda, for instance, you know, it's a place is allocated for unemployed youth, you know, to be given at least a hectare, so to be given a portion, you know, for you to develop.
Right.
That's employment. So there will now be direct monitoring and evaluation. Government will provide and assist with the input in form of subsidy. So, you know, like what the federal government has done now, they have brought in tractors. So what we need now is that where are those tractors going to be used? There are a lot of people in Oba area who are interested in farming,
right.
But some of them don't even have the funding, the capital, you know, to start this farm. So government now needs to, as a deliberate actions, create a portion of our city or our land that, look, this is dedicated for agricultural purpose. In FCT, for instance, we have a lot of land dedicated for farm activities in Kuje Area Council. But because this has been allocated and the people are not developing, well, now if you get to that place, they are now converting it to another land use, which shouldn't be so. And then government should also look at the old ones that are not working. If possible, they should be revoked, you know, and bring in new people that are ready to invest in it. Government should also encourage cluster farming among the youths. You know, like for instance, in Abuja, for instance, we have a University of Agriculture. Apart from the demonstration farm, government should, like what the federal government started about technical education now.
Right.
You know, students in higher institution doing agric as a course should be encouraged to also, you know, have a farm. Yes, and government can also do the same thing it's doing for technical education students to them, so that can promote the future of our agriculture in Nigeria.
Brilliant. But again, that has been quite an issue, what they call the convergence of the academia and the industry. We see that happen a lot in engineering or in tech, but we haven't seen much of it in agriculture. But let's talk about something else, still on the same matter. Just in our backyard here in Niger State, Governor Umar Bago is called the farming governor. Some people call him the farmer governor. Yes, but one would think, for example, it's not only Niger State that is blessed agriculturally. I mean, across this country, you have other states that are equally endowed in this area. What could be some factors that are limiting other state governors from taking such an initiative, given the volume of investments that has been made in Niger State?
Well, first, all the lands of Nigeria, all the entity called Nigeria is blessed agriculturally.
End to end.
End to end. There are a lot of agricultural products that can be utilized from the Nigerian land. So nobody, nowhere should say no, agriculture cannot be practiced in our state. No,
right.
All. Let's take note of that. Second, people should also look at the environment and look at what they can do for immediate benefit of the people.
Right.
Nigeria is classified globally as a third world. What is the business of the third world nation? First, it's agriculture. Why? Because the popularity of their cities are rurally inclined. So when you have that inclination, what do you dwell on? How do you raise your economic giants? Look at the richest man in Africa. What is his main source of funding? Where did he start from? agro-allied product, Dangote. Right. Do you understand? In other words, there is a feature in Nigeria agricultural sector. What we need to do is to identify and then begin to pursue and then begin to see. Let's encourage the people, and that's what the governor is doing. He has a local government under him. He found out that the center of activities in those local
Niger State.
In Niger State, Bago, is agriculture. So what did he need to vote 70% of his activity on? Agro development. And that is what he's achieving. Today, this is called the farmer's governor. There are a lot of, it's not only in area of agri, but the point I'm trying to make is that look at your environment. What do you think you can do to make life pleasant for your people? For instance, if you are from Niger Delta, you go for funding and establish your own state refinery. I remember when we were in Benue State, because of limestone in Yandep, we had Benue Cement.
Right.
I remember in Bende State, then, because of limestone in Opela, they had Bende Cement. So governors should now be interested in developing their local industry for the benefit of their own people. Niger has land, they have the moderate weather, and they have water. And what should they do with it? They start cultivating it, bringing crops. And that is why the governor is going places with that activities.
You just said Nigeria is, agriculture is the future.
Yes.
And we need to pay more attention to it that we're doing right now. Yes. Perhaps one wants to ask, why is it the case that we are not seeing that future? Is it the money from crude oil that's distracting us?
You see, one of the things that the global economic has done for Nigeria, the downturn of the global economic, is that it has really pushed us to see our potential in other areas of the economy.
Right.
You know, before the advent of the global oil marketing in Nigeria, the nation major source of revenue has been centered around agro products, cocoa, groundnut, palm oil.
That's right.
Okay, but because of the new investment and the quick reward from the crude oil, that sector was left undeveloped. But with the global economic issues and challenges now, our interest is now being redefined.
That's right.
And this is where, in the future, those who are going to go for the office of the governor will have to have something to offer. You don't just go because there's a revenue coming. You know, you go because you have what to offer to create the revenue yourself. So governors that are waiting for crude oil sales in the future, because remember now, the global sale based on activities, the world is moving to green energy.
That's right.
Okay, so the world is moving to electric vehicle. Even the for instance, what is the future of the crude oil? Yeah, it's high, but what's going to be the revenue
coming from it?
Coming from it? It's going to be low. It's going to be low. So and then what is also the level of job creation around that industry? It's apart from being, it's not seasonal, but it's regional. Right. You cannot open refinery in Jos because you have to transport. But you can open a big agro industry. There's a big farm in South Africa that is transporting fruits to US. What I mean is that the plateau is good for agricultural practice. Why don't we invest richly and make transport agro product from plateau to the other part of the world?
Interesting. Vice President Kashi Shettima is now talking about PPP, public-private partnership, to help further drive agricultural development in the interests of Nigeria. What are your thoughts about that sort of position?
You know, the challenge in the agriculture sector is lack of business exposure. A lot of people don't know the value chain in that industry. So what is PPP? Is private people bringing money to invest in this business. They have been taking their money to other business.
In collaboration with the government.
Either in collaboration with government or whichever. What matters is that having more funds to facilitate the growth of that industry. Okay? But in the past, a lot of people don't know what government has been doing. The policies around agriculture sector has not been stable. So individuals who are interested in investing in that sector don't really know the future of that sector. But look at what the federal government is doing now. If you watch what the president just did recently, they brought in a private sector who is to provide the nation with tractors. What that means is that that private individual will also need funding to execute or to bring in more. So the federal government cannot also collaborate with other people and say, please bring in this fund for us,
Right.
to give this man. We will secure it for you, we will monitor it, so that as the business grow, you will also be earning for it. So in the past, there's no policy that is so deliberate that can encourage private individuals to invest. But this administration has started the mechanization system and the guarantee system. That is the Bank of Agriculture. They have what it takes now to also issue, guarantee on behalf of any of their customers that are interested into PPA with the government and other persons. So the policy now, if properly followed, if we take it gradually, there's no need for us to rush about it.
We need to take our time.
We need to take our time. It has started. The president has launched it. All hands now should be on deck to see how the execution will run smoothly. I tell you that the future of this country in terms of food security and agro development is bright.
It sounds very inspiring to say that. But let's talk about value chain, which again you highlighted just a few minutes ago. As it stands today, are we paying as much attention to value chain within the agricultural sector as we ought to?
No, we are not, because a lot of people don't really know the concept of agro business. It's when you know the concept that you know where you're going to add value. For instance, from seedling to planting to harvest to storage and to marketing.
Right.
These are the lines we can add value. Now the question is, do people really know about it? And this is where the government agency responsible for agricultural institution should come up with more awareness of what people can do within that sector to earn living. There's a deliberate need for more awareness, more communication. Let people know that industry is rich, the potential in that industry is high. Let people know what they can do to tap into it. For instance, in rice sector, for instance, look at in rice production. Somebody goes to farm it, somebody buy it directly from the farm, somebody process it, somebody store it, and somebody sell it. Now these are about 5 values that can be added for just rice alone. Also in ginger, but a lot of people are not aware that there's a rich fund or reward in adding value to any agro business. So there's need for sensitization, especially the agro industry, the one created by government, like the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. They should have different agencies that can
they do have agencies under them, don't they? But the question is whether those agencies even understand their mandates in the first instance.
Yeah, they do, but you see, just as I said, if you in the past, we have a lot of technical education, technical colleges that have died, and this government has come in and they are resurrecting them. So also there are a lot of things in agro sector that is not working, that people don't know about it.
That's right.
There is a need for us to also encourage them to come back to life.
All right, let's again now talk about middlemen. I've heard that term and again, middlemen. Some people say middlemen are a problem in the agri sector. They talk about that in terms of individuals, or in some cases, corporate entities of some kind, who are more like go-between. They're like connectors, so to speak, between the farmers on the ground themselves and the off-takers. They say ideally there should be direct interface, in terms of transaction, between the farmers and the off-takers. Therefore, their argument is that when you have middlemen, it now makes it a bit more difficult to access products or farm produce, and then that ultimately affects market price, which is the reason they say that beyond the inflation numbers, that the middlemen also contribute very largely to the high price of food items.
You see, the middlemen are people that come in with their own money. They are also adding value to the business. There shouldn't be the problem. The problem is, what is the level of national interest value in that sector? For instance, one of the things the anchor borrower achieved was that they'll give you money, they'll give you inputs, and at the end of the day, you return a fraction
Of the money?
not of the money, of the produce.
The produce, okay. Okay.
Now, this produce cannot be sold directly to the market, which is going to compete with the farmer's price. But the challenge is that, what is the level of other investment apart from the middleman investment? What does the middleman do? A lot of farmers don't have funding to go.
So they bring their own
They
money?
bring their own money. So it's because there's a lacking in the whole transaction that somebody is taking advantage of the system. But if the system is properly run, there won't be needs for middlemen.
Incidentally, you just again mentioned the issue of funding and middlemen getting involved.
Yes.
In all of this. You can't take that away, quite frankly. But now that you mentioned the Anchor Boas program, I'm feeling a nudging to ask, what actually went wrong with that otherwise beautifully laid out policy at that time?
You see, it's not. That's not the only project that has failed in our nation.
As far as agric is concerned.
As far as agric is concerned, the challenge of project failure in Nigeria is most of these things gets to the wrong hand. Most of it gets to the wrong hand, and the Buhari administration made a lot of effort in making sure it gets to the right hand. But a lot of people who are not into this business, were encouraged to come into the business. And sustainability is the order of business. Every business will be challenged. But if you don't have a passion for it, and you are hit with the challenge of the business, you will leave. And that's the major challenge I find there, because I was indirectly involved. I was not directly involved, but I saw the activities going on in my area. I saw a lot of people. I saw what came out of it. But the bulk of that activities went into wrong hand. It went into wrong, and that began from the conception and execution. The agency that conceived it, the execution, I think it was done most majorly by NISA. So that's not their responsibility. And NISA don't have the capacity to follow Nigerian farmers. That what I was expecting.
So are you saying it was beyond the mandates of NISA? Is that the point you're making, or it was just a case of misplaced priorities?
Well, I have not really understudied certain things about it, but NISA was supposed to secure the fund and provide it through the ADPs.
The agricultural development programs.
Yes, because these are the people that are directly close to the people. It's monitoring and supervision that has been the cause of failure of most Nigerian projects.
As it stands today, we understand that even this issue on some level has become a subject of litigation, because the Central Bank of Nigeria, we understand that, is now holding certain individuals and entities accountable for those monies that could not be accounted for. There are people in your sector, in the agri sector, who argue that the CBN should also take in fact, if possible, the chunk of the blame, that the CBN did not manage this process very well. And that's why,
of course,
it's anything
that's happened in the past in Nigeria, especially that has to do with funding being accounted for.
Right.
To me, I would say we need a kind of a national reconciliation to hear from every party.
For the sake of fairness.
Because if you look at the economic itself that this money came in, has failed also in the past. So if you live in a failed economic, how do you expect an entrepreneur with that money to succeed. You know, I used to tell people, Buhari government positioned Nigeria for a lot of success. But there was a policy of that government that also sweep all the achievement.
What was that policy?
That's Naira redesign and
at the twilight of his government.
So what will you say? A lot of small businesses went down. They will never come back again. And this is a government that encouraged, you know, small businesses to grow. A lot of SME that came out under Buhari. But just one policy, send them packing. So how are you going to marry the two? So there's a need for a national reconciliation to check what has happened and to see how we can forge ahead.
All right, that's what we're going to do on this conversation too. We need to forge ahead while talking about the agricultural sector in Nigeria. We're taking a quick break, everyone. When we return, we'll look at another strand of this development, which is exports. How much of Nigerian agri-specific items get out of this country, and what do we get back in return by way of foreign exchange? We'll find answers to that question and a lot more after this break. Please do stay with us. Is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
All right, everyone, it's time we raise this conversation a notch higher. Desmond, again, I'd like to say thank you to you for the time
thank you.
you spent with us so far.
Thank you, Mr. Wee.
But let's talk about exports now. You and I had talked about here one time how that certain agri items had left this country, over 40 of them abroad, and they were returned because they said they didn't meet standards and they didn't comply with some certain regulatory factors and so on and so forth. Does it look like we have learned any valuable lesson from those experiences?
Of course, that was in the past. It's not only Nigeria. Nigeria also rejects some nations' agri commodity that comes into the country. So it's normal. But for over the time now, we have improved. And I think last week or recently, the National Assembly just passed a bill that at least all the agro products before leaving Nigeria should be 30% processed. So that's there's improvement. And as long as we're improving our agro business, we're also improving the processing standard to meet the other global standard.
When President Buhari was in office, I mean the immediate past president, right? He had appointed Audu Ogbe as Minister of Agriculture. Many people say, well, that appointment was a square peg in a square hole, or a round peg in a round hole, and their premise for that sort of position was that this man is a real-time farmer who understands what farm is about. Of course, Audu Ogbe is an exceptionally brilliant man, and he brings that brilliance into conversations around agriculture. Today we have a different gentleman there talking about this other gentleman, the senator himself, yes, Kyari, who has also shown that things can be done differently and so on and so forth. What is the, if you like, relationship or the connection between the person who mans the Ministry of Agriculture at the federal level and the results that we see on the ground?
Well, you know, the role of leadership is key in anything we do now, and it's just like FCT,
right?
You know, I live in FCT and grew in FCT. I stayed in FCT, and the last minister of the FCT under Buhari administration spent almost 8 years.
Right.
And I can tell you that in 8 years, I've never seen him physically in my local government. Physically, I've not seen him. He didn't come to commission project, and he didn't come to do any major visit. But this is, we have a new minister now, and within
in less than 2 years?
In less than 2 years, he has turned my city, you know, my town to a modern city. You know, that is leadership. That is leadership. If you look at the results we have achieved so far in agricultural sector, from the Buhari administration down to today, and compared to the 16 years of PDP, where were we? During PDP, a major staple food in your home was being imported into the country. But now this is now cultivated within 8 years. It's now cultivated and produced in your country. Okay, so we thank God for all the men that have come within that sector. You know, they dwell in different areas within that sectors to improve the system. What this the present minister is doing is marketing and strategic execution of agro projects.
Right.
And that's going to pay us in the future. So so far so good. What we have now,
yes,
it's good to run with. And we hope that they will sustain the race they are running.
Talking about sustenance, I mean, you and I know, Desmond, that one of the things we have seen happen in this country many more times that we can count is what they call policy somersaults. What are the fundamentals that must be addressed if we must have a transition? For example, one government comes into office and starts something new, especially if the last government is not of the same party as this incoming government and things like that. So how do we ensure that sustainability is not just something we keep talking about, but we are seeing the results in concrete terms as we make progress as a country?
You see, one of the things that we must give credit to APC government is that they understand the continuity in governance.
Do we see that in agriculture?
No. Let's take it easy gradually. We'll get there. Remember when Buhari came, he had the opportunity to initiate new projects.
Right.
But he said, no, this is Nigeria and this is government. So he continued with the existing project. Also, one of the promise of this present administration is that I will continue from where you stop.
That's Tinubu talking about.
Yes. And from all we are seeing, the continuity is still growing. So what we hope for is that there should be sustainability. Yes, policy can fail, policy can be somersaulted if the blueprint is not diligently followed. And that is where I'm calling on the Minister of Agriculture as part of his activities to continuously oversee, you know, do a lot of scheduled and unscheduled visits to these institutions that they have engaged so that his result can be maintained. If they can do that, we are good to go.
We're living in a country where we almost practically beg people to go to the farm, which was not the case a few decades ago. Today, it's more like rocket science to convince a young person, I mean, fresh out of college graduates, those who are just leaving university, to go to the farm. Even those who studied agriculture. Why is that? How do we make it more attractive? Because the idea of farming for the average young person is that you have to pick, well, old, archaic farm implements, get dirty, it's not a fashionable line of work and things like that. I mean, maybe you can talk to our viewers about that.
You see, farming is tedious.
So we have to establish that.
We have to establish that.
Right.
And then in the modern economy, in the modern global view, you know, a lot of people can do other things outside farming that can make them ends.
Even within agricultural sector?
Outside agriculture.
Outside, okay.
Now, but for what we need to do to encourage farming is what I said earlier. That agro industry has been a kind of dormant industry in terms of youthful awareness. A lot of young people don't know the value chain that is there. Okay, so government can just initiate it as they started this technical education.
Right.
You know, they can also go back. We have College of Agric across the country. We have faculties of Agric across the universities, and then we have Agric as a course in the
universities,
in the secondary school,
secondary all the way up.
So what we need to do is to return back to what will encourage Nigeria, what will show Nigerians the value. And also government should also, you know, in the city, they should also have a deliberate portion for farming. Even if it is a hectare or just 4,000 square meter for individual who wants to farm, that is secure, that have infrastructure like accessibility, water and other things. People will do, but because we don't have this, people are not interested in it. You know, the essence of the college of the technical college was to get people to do the technology things.
Right.
Okay. So if we have and people abandon it. Okay. Now, if we have something like that, which we have College of Agriculture, federal universities of agriculture, and a lot of people. In fact, those universities, if you will go now, some of them have even started running other courses outside their
agriculture.
Outside their
some of them are doing history and mass communication.
Some of them are doing arts and social studies courses. You know why? Because students are not coming for that. But government can encourage. The role of government is to lead the people and show the people the way. Why the people will follow. So government should please, as a matter of urgency, show a way in that industry. And let's see how Nigerians will respond to it.
Beyond the lineup of tractors on a farm, really, what exactly makes farming mechanized? When you say mechanized farming, what exactly
is the inputs, the system? For instance, our fathers, you know, we have two types of agriculture, both subsistence farming and the commercial farming.
Right.
Now, the one we know, the one the local person know is to carry his hoe and cutlass and clear the ground. But today, you have alternative to that, and the grass will go off. To get the weed off, we have herbicide. You know, that's what makes farming mechanized. You have tractors. You have some farming implements that are modern tools that can be used to clear the land for you to plant your seed. That's what makes farming mechanized. And these things are in capital funding. They are not cheap.
Right.
And a lot of local peoples don't even have money to buy herbicide, what we call chemical, to control weed. So they use their hoe to weed off the grasses. But with a weed, with selective habitat, you can control the weeds that comes to your plant. So those are the things that make farming mechanized. It's not only the tractor.
Right.
Tractors are for big farms, though it can also be used for small farms to ease the strength and the stress of farming.
Quite interesting. Every other time, there are examples that are cited that Nigeria can learn from. You hear South Africa, people are even now adding Rwanda to that list. You hear, Australia in particular, even New Zealand. And they hear countries like the Netherlands, for example. I remember one time, former CBN governor, talking about Godwin Emefiele, was giving a speech at a federal university in the south. And he tries to crunch some numbers as to what the Netherlands at that time was already achieving in terms of outputs in agricultural sector compared to the case of Nigeria. This was sometime in 2019. And he said something very instructive and maybe a bit disturbing too, about how that Netherlands as a country is not bigger than Niger State in Nigeria, which is a subnational. But in terms of what Nigeria as a country of 36 states in Africa, all right, gets from agriculture and what Netherlands gets from just one line of products, I mean, the difference is like day and night. Can we model that? Can we replicate it on some level to some extent?
Well, I don't want to quote MFL.
Right. There is less of facts in this.
I don't want to talk anything that has to do with MFL.
For personal reasons?
Yes, for personal reasons. But then, we can model Netherlands. And what we need to do is, just as we say, the landmarks of Netherlands is not up to Niger State. But Netherlands is achieving something that is more than Nigeria.
Right.
So what do we need to do? It's just to crop what they are doing and replicate it first in a section of Nigeria and see what we achieve. It's not a big deal, though. It's a small thing. The revenue of Netherlands is almost 35% from their agro business. Globally, they have funding that gives scholarship. I have a friend that went for training free of charge from Netherlands government, Orange program. Okay, so we can replicate that. The federal government or any funding government agency or institution can go in conjunction with a state and start a project, a similar project that we have learned from the from a nation, and drive it and see how it works. What makes agro-business successful is level of investment and focus that is into it. So we need to ask ourselves, what is the level of investment we even have in this industry? So if we have what we are looking for, what the industry needs, definitely, and there is supervision, there is a monitoring, and there's a good follow-up, of course we'll get the result. And then we shouldn't just think of starting it big the way we want to achieve.
From the ground up.
We should start it as a pilot program. And that's what this president is doing that's encouraging me. It's not because you hear the name that you want to mechanize the system, you bring in 1 million. No. Let's start and see what we're going to achieve, and then we improve on it.
But yeah, I just want to ask you this in terms of the investment you talked about now. When you look at the case today, it's as if foreign direct investment into the agri sector is slow.
It was slow before, but now it's increasing.
So has it picked up now?
Yes, it has picked up. We have a lot coming in. The mechanized farming system that the president went to launch came in from a Belarusian businessman. So it's growing. I told you that recently, $5 billion cooperative trust fund has just been introduced into the system on an agro assured investment trust fund. You know, so we're expecting more. The companies are coming from Brazil to establish agro business in Nigeria. That's great.
People say such conversations end at the level of diplomacy. They don't really materialize at the level of industry. Is that true?
Recently, one of the companies was in Ogun State to sign MOU. So what's the conversation here? Don't you see the way the Brazilian president was happy to receive Nigerian president during the BRICS summit?
Okay, let's hope all of this will come to fruition in the agri sector in Nigeria. But let's tie it up now on the final note. Cocoa is taken away from Nigeria, especially from the southwest, places like Ondo State, for example. And then in return, we get processed chocolates in this country, whether from Switzerland, from the US, or from any other part of Europe. Citrus is taken away from Nigeria. In return, we get juice. Exactly. So at what point are we going to sit down and get our thinking cap on?
No, the thinking cap is up. What we need now is investment, local investment, where this thing can start being processed. For instance, for the cocoa, this administration has recently sent a bill
to the National Assembly.
Yes, to open the cocoa processing commission.
That's right.
The cocoa commission. What that means is that commission is going to harness all the potential in that area. And also, there are other things that government is doing to see that local production, value chain in agriculture increase. And that is why the vice president was calling and say, look, we have the environment now.
Right.
We are creating the enabling ground that the private sectors can bring in more funds, and let's partner together to develop our own agro industries. So the moment we achieve that, so we begin to process our own jobs, are going to be created, more opportunity, we're going to earn more in dollar. These things will now be exported, people come here to buy, instead of we go there to buy.
John Desmond, I'd like to say a big thank you to you for coming. This has been worth the time, no doubt about that. But the agricultural sector, like we have both agreed on the program this morning, is such that it's pivotal to Nigeria's economic growth. There's no debate about that. But as always, we will continue to track the progress for you, whether from the standpoint of regulation or policy implementation. We'll take a quick break now. When we return, Juma and I will wrap up the program for you today. Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Monday through Sunday to a wide range of latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest. And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
The agri sector, both of us, I mean, myself and Desmond, were talking about a while ago, is one sector that is still evolving in the case of Nigeria because of the policy somersaults instances that we recorded over time. And we are hoping that will change for the better going forward. And he gave assurances, of course, not on behalf of the government, but he was saying that based on the pattern we've seen, starting from the time of former President Muhammadu Buhari and coming into the administration of President Bola Tinubu, that there's a pretty good chance that we are in for a good time in the agri sector. Talked about investment coming in, talked about mechanized approach to farming.
Things already put in place.
Right, exactly, and all of those efforts are being made. But we hope they all crystallize into a real-time achievement for us.
Very important. And of course, you know, agriculture is one of the big source of revenue in Nigeria.
It is.
And of course, it will go a lot, if there is a lot done in agriculture, the basics are brought in and all of that, I think we'll go a long way when it comes to agriculture. And of course, there will be a light, just like in the words of the president, light at the end of the tunnel. And at this point, we have to wrap it up on the program Global Morning. Hope you had an amazing time with us today from 7 a.m. till at about this time. Join us same time tomorrow on Global Morning. I am Jumai Manson and my co-host.
And just to also remind us that the views of our guests and their opinions and all of the newspaper headlines we bring for you as published by their respective publishers. Global TV never makes any editorial inputs into them. I'm Mofwegbe, and thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.